All right, strap yourselves in because today we're diving deep into Stanisław Lem's Solaris.
Oh, Solaris.
It's a sci-fi novel that's less about, I don't know, spaceships and aliens, and more about some really deep mysteries about the human mind. And really, like, what can we truly know about anything, let alone, like, the entire universe?
You really hit the nail on the head. Lem, he was a master at using science fiction to explore these profound philosophical questions. And Solaris is just like the perfect example of that. It takes us on this journey to a space station that's orbiting a planet that, get this, has a mind of its own.
Oh, okay, that sounds wild. Can you set the stage for us a little bit more?
So imagine a planet covered entirely by this giant sentient ocean.
Okay.
And I don't mean just waves and currents. I mean an ocean that thinks and feels and interacts with the humans that are trying to study it. That's Solaris.
So no beach vacations on this planet, huh?
No, not really.
But what are these humans even doing there in the first place?
Well, they're scientists, and they're trying to understand this just mind-boggling phenomenon.
Right.
And our main character, a psychologist named Chris Kelvin, he arrives at the station to investigate these strange occurrences. And let's just say, he gets way more than he bargained for.
I'm so intrigued. What kind of strange occurrences are we even talking about?
He encounters the manifestation of his deceased wife, Rhea. And it's not like a ghost or a hallucination, like in the traditional sense. It's a physical being. Seemingly created by the ocean itself.
Oh, wow.
And this, what they call a visitor, is incredibly realistic. But there's something deeply unsettling about her, too.
Wow, okay, that's heavy stuff. So he's dealing with grief and the strangeness of being on this space station and then, like, a possibly not real version of his dead wife. Does anyone else on the station have this visitor problem?
He's not alone.
Oh, good. Okay.
Other characters on the station, like Snow and Sartorius, they also encounter these visitors from their own past.
Gotcha.
But they all react differently.
Right.
Some are trying to understand it. Others are just retreating into fear.
Right.
It really highlights, I think, how much our own individual experiences and our traumas can shape how we react to the unknown.
That's such a great point. It's not just about the sci-fi weirdness,
but
also about, you know, as humans, how we process something unimaginable. So what does Kelvin do? Besides probably freak out a little.
It does more than freak out, although that would be totally understandable. He's a psychologist. So he tries to, like, analyze the situation. He even conducts this experiment using the station's computer and a satellite to prove that what he's experiencing is actually real and not just like in his head.
So he's trying to like ground himself in some sort of objective truth? Did it work?
Well, the experiment confirms that the station's real. And the computer exists independently of his mind. But, you know, that only deepens the mystery.
Right.
Because if it's all real, then what does it mean about these visitors? And what does that mean about the ocean that's creating them? It's this moment where scientific method kind of clashes with something that's totally unexplainable.
Oh, that's so interesting. So that sounds like Lem is really pushing the boundaries of what we consider real.
The novel, it constantly blurs those lines. And what's fascinating is that this isn't just some thought experiment. You know, this is deeply personal for Kelvin and the other characters. It forces them and us as readers to confront the nature of reality and how much of it is shaped by our own perceptions and experiences.
That's what makes good sci-fi so compelling, right? It really does.
Really does. Okay, so we have this mysterious ocean and these visitors and these scientists trying to make sense of it all. What's the next layer of this crazy onion?
Well, the scientists, they come up with all these theories about the ocean and what it might be trying to do. They even try to categorize its creations. They come up with names like mimoids. Which are these giant shape-shifting structures. Mimitriads. These enormous geometric formations that defy, like, the laws of physics.
Mimoids and symmetriads. Those are some really cool names. And it's almost like they're trying to impose order on something that's just inherently chaotic.
And it shows how as humans, we just grapple with things we don't understand, you know? We try to put them in these neat little boxes, give them names and labels.
Right.
But with something like Solaris, that's just not possible.
Right.
It pushes us to the very limits of knowledge and comprehension.
And I bet those limits get tested even further when they start doing experiments on this, right?
You bet. Their attempts to understand the ocean and these visitors, they get increasingly desperate and, well, in some cases, ethically questionable.
Oh.
For instance, Sartorius tries to use a neutrino field to just, like, destroy the visitors.
Oh, that does sound drastic. So Kelvin's wrestling with his visitor, and these other scientists are going to these extremes to try and figure things out. What's going on with Kelvin and his personal journey through all of it?
He's deeply conflicted.
Okay.
He's drawn to this recreated Rhea, but he knows she's not truly his deceased wife.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It makes him and the reader really question the nature of identity and love and what it truly means to be human.
It's like the ocean is forcing him to confront his past and his grief and maybe even his own identity in a way. I'm sensing a theme about how the personal and the cosmic are like so intertwined in this book.
Solaris doesn't shy away from the emotional impact of encountering something so profoundly alien. You know, it's not just this cerebral exercise. It's a story about how we as humans process the unknown both intellectually and emotionally.
This is fascinating stuff, but I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface. We'll be back after a quick break to delve even deeper into the mysteries of Solaris.
Yeah, there's so much more to unpack.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that really struck me about Solaris is how Lem uses these
incredible descriptions of the ocean's creations to really emphasize just how alien this intelligence is.
Yeah, I remember reading about those mimoids, like those giant shape-shifting things you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like the ocean is just flexing its creative muscles, but in a way that's totally beyond our understanding.
Exactly. And then there are the symmetriads, these massive geometric formations that seem to just completely defy the laws of physics. Lem's descriptions, they're so vivid, you can practically picture them in your mind, even though they're unlike anything you've ever seen before.
It's like he's painting this picture of a world that's both beautiful and terrifying. Familiar and utterly strange all at the same time.
Absolutely.
I can see why some of the scientists in the book want to just categorize everything and put it all in little boxes. It's almost like a defense mechanism against the sheer awe. And maybe even like the fear that Solaris inspires.
That's a great observation. It's like the human need for order and control clashes with the chaotic and like incomprehensible nature of Solaris. It's like this cosmic Rorschach test, you know? It's just reflecting our own desires and fears and limitations right back at us.
I love that. Okay, so Kelvin is grappling with his visitor. And the scientists are trying to like understand this ocean, and we're all just kind of along for the ride, questioning what is even real. Where does the story go from there?
Well, Kelvin's relationship with his Rhea, that's like a major focus. He's torn between his feelings for her, and the knowledge that she's not the real Rhea. She's a creation of this alien ocean.
Man, that's got to be like such a head trip.
Totally.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about like the nature of love and connection, and if those things can even exist when one person, you know, isn't even fully human.
It challenges us to think about what it means to be human and to have relationships with others, you know? Is it about shared memories? Is it about physical form? Or is it something deeper, something that goes beyond the purely physical or intellectual?
It's almost like Lem is asking, what is the soul? But he's doing it through this incredibly strange and beautiful science fiction story.
Exactly.
And then it gets even more complicated when the scientists decide to use Kelvin's brainwaves, his encephalogram, to try to influence Solaris.
They think they can communicate with it on like a deeper level. But the consequences are completely unpredictable.
Oh, I bet. Whenever humans try to control something that powerful and mysterious, it never really seems to end well. What happens to Kelvin and his Rhea?
So it's kind of a turning point in the story. This encephalogram experiment, it leads to Rhea disappearing.
Oh, no.
And Kelvin's just devastated. He's filled with this guilt.
Yeah.
And he realizes that despite all of his attempts to, like, understand and control the situation, he's ultimately powerless against these forces at play.
It's like this stark reminder of like the limits of human knowledge and our ability to really shape the world around us, especially when faced with something as vast and unknowable as Solaris.
And then just when you think Kelvin's starting to come to terms with his loss,
there's
another twist.
What?
Snow. He reveals that the ocean may have just stopped creating the visitors altogether.
What?
Yeah. The station is left in this eerie silence.
Wow.
And Kelvin is just left to contemplate
the
meaning of everything he's experienced.
Talk about a cliffhanger. So what happens next? Does Kelvin get any, like, answers? Does he ever figure out what the ocean was trying to do?
Well, that's the beauty of Solaris. It doesn't give you easy answers or like neat resolutions. It's a book that lingers with you long after you've finished reading it. It prompts you to ask your own questions and draw your own conclusions.
So it's more about the journey than the destination.
I think so.
It sounds like Lem is less interested in like solving this mystery of Solaris and more interested in using it as like a springboard to explore these bigger themes about like humanity and consciousness and our place in the universe.
Exactly. Solaris is a book that makes you think. It challenges you to like question your assumptions about reality. And it ultimately leaves you with this sense of wonder and awe at just the vastness and the mystery of the cosmos.
And that's what makes it like a true masterpiece of science fiction, right? It goes beyond like the genre tropes. It becomes something much deeper.
It really does.
That's more profound.
It certainly does. But before we get too cosmic, let's bring it back down to earth for a minute. What are some of the specific like messages or themes that you think Lem is trying to convey in Solaris?
Well, there's definitely the theme of the limits of human understanding. You know, the scientists in the book, despite all of their knowledge and technology, they're ultimately unable to really comprehend Solaris. Or like its motivations at all.
I totally agree. It's this like humbling reminder that there are just things out there in the universe that are simply beyond our grasp, no matter how much we try to like analyze and categorize them.
And then there's the idea that our perceptions shape our reality. Like the visitors in the book. They're these manifestations of the characters' like subconscious desires and fears. Which suggests that what we perceive as real is often influenced by our own internal landscapes.
It makes you wonder, like, how much of our reality is actually objective? And how much is just constructed by our own minds?
And, of course, there's the theme of, like, the destructive nature of guilt and grief. The visitors act as these, like, catalysts that force these characters to confront their past traumas and the emotional baggage that they've been carrying around.
It highlights the power of the past to shape the present. And, like, how unresolved emotional issues can haunt us, even in, like, the most unexpected ways.
Man, Solaris is a book that tackles some really heavy stuff. But it does so in a way that's both intellectually stimulating and emotionally resonant.
I couldn't agree more. It's a testament to Lem's skill as a writer that he can weave together such complex themes with like a captivating narrative.
I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've explored the plot, the characters, the themes, and even the philosophical implications of Solaris. But I have a feeling there's still more to uncover.
I think so too.
We'll be back after a quick break to wrap up our deep dive into this mind-bending masterpiece. Okay, we're back. Ready to finish our deep dive into Solaris. We've talked about the plot, the characters, and the themes, but I think it's time to try and answer, like, the big question. What is Lem trying to say with this book? What's the takeaway for us, the readers?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And like we've said before, Solaris is not a book that offers easy answers. It's more about raising questions and challenging our assumptions about the universe and our place in it.
So it's less about finding solutions and more about embracing the mystery.
Exactly. Lem is inviting us to, like, confront the unknown, to acknowledge that there are things in the universe that we may never fully understand, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's essential to our growth as individuals and as a species.
That's a really interesting perspective. So instead of trying to, like, force the universe to fit into our neat little boxes, we should be open to the possibility that it might break those boxes entirely.
Precisely. Solaris is a reminder that the universe is vast and complex and ultimately unknowable. Our attempts to understand it, while important, are ultimately limited by our own human perspectives and experiences.
It's like that saying, if you think you know everything, you don't know anything at all.
Yeah, exactly. The more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. And Solaris really throws that into sharp relief.
So what does that mean for us? How do we as humans move forward in a universe that's full of so much mystery and uncertainty?
I think Solaris suggests that the key is humility. We need to approach the unknown with a sense of wonder and awe, recognizing that we are but small beings in this vast cosmos.
So instead of trying to, like, conquer or control the universe, we should try to understand it and learn from it. And maybe even be changed by it.
Absolutely. And that change might always be comfortable. It might challenge our beliefs, our values, even our sense of self. But it's through that discomfort that we grow.
That reminds me of that quote by Anais Nin.
Oh, yeah.
And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom.
I love that quote. It perfectly captures the spirit of Solaris. It's about taking risks, embracing the unknown, and allowing ourselves to be transformed by the experience.
And that transformation might look different for everyone, right? Like,
absolutely.
Solaris is a book that resonates with each reader in, like, a unique way.
Exactly. There's no one right interpretation. It's a book that invites multiple readings, multiple perspectives, and multiple meanings.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Solaris, I think the main takeaway is this. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to challenge your assumptions. And embrace the mystery of the universe. You might just discover something amazing about yourself in the process.
Well said. Solaris is a book that stays with you long after you've finished reading it. It prompts you to think differently about the world, about humanity, and about your own place in the grand scheme of things.
And on that note, we'd like to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Stanisław Lem's Solaris. We hope you enjoyed exploring this mind-bending masterpiece with us.
Yeah, if you haven't read Solaris yet, we highly recommend checking it out. And if you have, maybe it's time for a reread. You never know what new insights you might uncover.
Thanks for listening. Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.